The candlelight flickered across the white tablecloth at Romano's, casting warm shadows over what was supposed to be a celebration of my parents' 35th wedding anniversary. The restaurant hummed with quiet conversations and the gentle clinking of wine glasses, but our corner table had fallen into an uncomfortable silence that seemed to grow heavier with each passing minute. I sat across from my parents, watching them exchange meaningful glances that clearly indicated some kind of significant announcement was coming. After 35 years of marriage, they'd developed that wordless communication that allowed them to coordinate major life decisions without actually discussing them in front of other people. "Jessica," Dad finally said, setting down his wine glass with the deliberate precision of someone about to deliver important news. "Your mother and I have something to tell you. Here we go." I'd been expecting this conversation for months, ever since Dad's retirement and their increasingly frequent mentions of downsizing and new chapters. "We've made a big decision about our future," Mom added, her voice carrying that particular tone that suggested whatever they were about to announce had already been decided without any input from me. "Okay," I said, taking a sip of my wine. "What kind of decision?" "Well," Dad began, clearly having rehearsed this speech, "as you know, retirement has given us time to think about what we want the next phase of our lives to look like." I nodded encouragingly, though I suspected I wasn't going to like where this was heading. "We've decided we want to try something completely different," Mom continued. "Something adventurous." "Like what?" "Like moving to California," Dad said with the enthusiasm of someone announcing a surprise vacation. "California," I repeated neutrally. "Specifically San Diego," Mom clarified. "We've been researching the area for months. The weather, the cost of living, the healthcare facilities, everything looks perfect for retirees." "That sounds exciting," I said, though something in their tone suggested this wasn't just a casual discussion of possibilities. "We're moving to California without you," announced, her voice taking on a strange combination of excitement and defiance. The words hit me like a physical blow, though I tried to keep my expression neutral. Dad added, "The house is already sold." I set down my wine glass carefully, processing this information. They'd sold the family home, the house where I'd grown up, where I'd lived for the past 3 years while helping them navigate Dad's health issues and Mom's surgery recovery, without mentioning it to me. "When did you sell the house?" I asked quietly. "Last week," Dad said, his voice carrying a note of triumph. "We got an excellent offer from a young family. Well above asking price." "Congratulations," I said, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. "Jessica." Mom's tone shifted to something that sounded almost like an apology. "We know this might seem sudden, but we've been planning this for months. Planning it for months without mentioning it to me. We didn't want to worry you with the details until everything was finalized," Dad explained. "And we wanted to make sure you understood that this is our decision," Mom added, her voice gaining strength. "We're not asking for permission or approval. We're informing you of what we've decided." The distinction was clear. This wasn't a family discussion. This was a parental decree. "I see," I said. "And when are you moving?" "Next month," Dad said. "We've already found a beautiful condo in a retirement community near the beach. Swimming pool, golf course, activities center. Everything we've always dreamed of. It sounds perfect for you." "Jessica." Mom's voice carried a strange note of concern. "You seem to be taking this very well. Should I not be taking it well? We thought you might be upset about us moving so far away. About the house being sold." I looked at my parents. These two people who had raised me, supported me through college, welcomed me back home 3 years ago when I told them I needed to figure some things out, and realized they genuinely expected me to be devastated by their announcement. What they didn't know was that I'd been expecting this conversation for months. What they also didn't know was that I'd been preparing for it in ways they couldn't imagine. "Why would I be upset?" I asked. "You're adults making decisions about your own lives. You don't need my permission to pursue your dreams." "Well," Dad seemed slightly deflated by my reasonable response, "we thought you might be concerned about your own living situation." "My living situation?" "Jessica," Mom said gently, "you've been living at home for 3 years. We know this change will require some adjustments on your part." But they were worried about how their dependent 32-year-old daughter would manage without their support. "I'll figure something out," I said simply. "Will you?" Dad's voice carried a note of skepticism. Because frankly, we've been concerned about your lack of direction lately. By lack of direction? Jessica, you moved back home 3 years ago saying you needed time to explore your options, Mom said using air quotes. But as far as we can tell, you spend most of your time on your laptop doing what exactly? This was the conversation I'd been dreading. For 3 years, my parents had watched me work from home on what they assumed was freelance graphic design or some other creative pursuit that didn't generate substantial income. They'd never asked for details about my work, preferring to assume I was struggling professionally while figuring out my life direction. I work in digital marketing, I said, which was technically true. Digital marketing for whom? Dad pressed. Various clients. Local businesses? Small companies. Different types of companies. Jessica. Mom's voice took on that patient tone reserved for talking to children who weren't being entirely honest. We're not trying to criticize your work. We're just concerned that you don't seem to have stability. What kind of stability? The kind that would allow you to afford your own place for starters, Dad said. You haven't paid rent in 3 years. You don't have a car payment because you drive that old Honda we bought you in college. You don't seem to have health insurance or retirement savings or any of the things that indicate someone is building a sustainable adult life. The irony was thick enough to cut with a knife. What my parents didn't know was that I'd been living at home not because I needed their financial support, but because I'd been quietly managing their financial support. 3 years ago, when Dad's small business had started failing and Mom's medical bills had begun mounting, I'd moved home ostensibly to figure things out, but actually to keep an eye on their deteriorating financial situation. While they thought I was freelancing for small clients, I'd actually been running Aurora Digital Solutions, a marketing automation company that I'd built into a $47 million enterprise. My various clients included Fortune 500 companies, major e-commerce platforms, and government agencies. My personal net worth was approximately $23 million, and I owned property in 4 states. But I'd kept my success private because I'd learned that my parents preferred seeing me as their dependent daughter rather than acknowledging that I might be more financially stable than they were. You're right, I said. I don't have the traditional markers of adult stability. And that's why we're concerned, Mom said. Moving to California is our dream, but we don't want to abandon you if you're not ready to be independent. I appreciate your concern. Jessica. Dad leaned forward, his voice taking on the tone of someone delivering difficult but necessary truth. We love you. But we also think that maybe our moving away will be good for you. Good for me how? It will force you to take responsibility for your own life. To stop depending on us for housing and start building something real for yourself. Something real. A career with actual income. An apartment you pay for yourself. Relationships with people your own age instead of just living with your parents. I see. We're not abandoning you, Mom added quickly. We're encouraging you to grow up. The words stung, though not for the reasons they thought. It wasn't that they were wrong about my need for independence. It was that they were completely wrong about my level of dependence. Well, I said, forcing a smile, I guess this is the perfect opportunity for me to prove I can take care of myself. You're not angry? Dad asked, seeming almost disappointed by my calm response. I'm not angry. I'm proud of you for pursuing your dreams. And you're not worried about your own situation? Mom pressed. I'll manage. Jessica. Dad's voice carried a note of frustration. You seem to be missing the gravity of this situation. In 4 weeks, you'll need to find your own place to live, support yourself entirely, and build an adult life without any family safety net. I smiled and said, have a safe trip. They stared at me, clearly expecting a more dramatic response to having their support system pulled out from under me with 4 weeks' notice. That's it? Mom asked. Have a safe trip? What else would you like me to say? We thought you might ask about visiting arrangements or staying in touch or maybe even express some emotion about this major life change, Dad said. I'm happy for you. You've worked hard your whole lives and you deserve to enjoy your retirement exactly how you want to enjoy it. But what about you? Mom insisted. What about me? How are you going to manage without us? The question hung in the air between us. They genuinely believed that my life would fall apart without their support, and they were clearly struggling with guilt about leaving their dependent daughter to fend for herself. What they didn't know was, I'd already bought their dream house in California. 2 months ago, when Dad had first mentioned San Diego as a retirement possibility, I'd quietly contacted a real estate agent and begun researching properties in the area. When they'd shown me pictures of the perfect condo they'd fallen in love with during their scouting trip, I'd recognized the address immediately. The Sunset Vista retirement community was a luxury development that I'd been tracking for investment purposes. When an oceanfront villa had come on the market, the exact unit my parents had described as their dream home but way out of our price range, I'd purchased it through one of my holding companies. "I think I'll manage just fine," I said. "Jessica, managing just fine isn't the same as thriving," Dad said. "We want you to thrive." "I want that too." "Then maybe you could use this transition as motivation to finally commit to building a real career," Mom suggested. "Maybe I could." "What kind of career interests you?" Dad asked, clearly trying to be supportive despite his frustration with my lack of apparent ambition. "I'm interested in scaling digital marketing solutions for enterprise-level clients," I said. "That sounds complicated," Mom said diplomatically. "It can be." "Is it profitable work?" Dad asked. "It can be very profitable when done correctly." "Well," Mom said, "maybe you could start small and work your way up. Build a client base gradually." "That's good advice." The conversation moved on to logistics. Moving dates, forwarding addresses, what furniture they planned to take versus what they'd leave for me to deal with. Through it all, I nodded and smiled and gave the appearance of someone gracefully accepting a major life disruption. What I was actually doing was calculating timelines and coordinating moving logistics that they couldn't imagine. After dinner, I drove them home to the house that was no longer their house, helped Mom load the dishwasher and kissed them goodnight like any normal evening. Then I went to my room and made 3 phone calls. The first was to my real estate agent in San Diego. "Margaret? It's Jessica. I need you to prepare the Sunset Vista property for immediate occupancy." "Yes, the oceanfront villa. Full furniture package, premium appliances, everything ready for move-in within 2 weeks." The second call was to my executive assistant. "David, I need you to coordinate a relocation package for my parents." "Yes, the full-service option. Moving company, travel arrangements, welcome package at the destination." "No, they don't know I'm arranging it yet." The third call was to my financial advisor. "Patricia, I need you to set up a trust fund for my parents' ongoing expenses in California. Enough to cover property taxes, HOA fees, and living expenses for at least 20 years. Yes, make it look like a retirement community benefit package." For weeks later, I stood in the driveway watching the moving truck pull away with my parents' furniture, headed for San Diego. Mom and Dad were flying out that afternoon, planning to arrive at their condo rental, as they understood it, and spend a few days getting settled before their furniture arrived. "Are you sure you'll be okay?" Mom asked for the 10th time that morning. "I'll be fine. You have our phone number and the address of the retirement community, and the property manager's contact information," Dad said, handing me a piece of paper. "I have everything I need." "And you promise you'll call if you need anything?" "I promise." They hugged me goodbye, climbed into their taxi and headed for the airport to start their new life in California. When they arrived and saw the sold sign, my phone rang at 8:47 p.m. Pacific time. "Jessica." Mom's voice was confused and slightly panicked. "Something's wrong." "What kind of something?" "We're at the retirement community, but there's been some kind of mistake." "What kind of mistake?" "The condo we're supposed to be renting, it has a sold sign in front of it." "That's strange. The property manager is here and she's saying that the unit was purchased by someone else. She says we need to find alternative accommodations." "That's frustrating." "Jessica, we're standing in the parking lot with our suitcases and we have nowhere to go." "Where's the property manager now?" "She's making some phone calls trying to figure out what happened." "Let me talk to her." I could hear Mom explaining to someone that her daughter wanted to speak with them. "Hello, this is Margaret Walsh, property manager for Sunset Vista. Are you the daughter?" "I am." "What seems to be the problem?" "Well, there's been a communication error somewhere. Your parents were expecting to rent Unit 47A, but that unit was sold 2 months ago to a private buyer." "I see. Is there alternative accommodation available?" "That's what I'm trying to arrange. We have a smaller unit available, but it's not oceanfront and doesn't have the same amenities." "What about Unit 47A? Is it occupied?" No, it's not occupied yet. The new owner hasn't moved in. Could you contact the new owner and explain the situation? Maybe they'd be willing to rent it to my parents temporarily. I could try, but I doubt they'd be interested in a rental arrangement. The unit cost $2.3 million. These aren't typically buyers who need rental income. You never know until you ask. Let me try calling them now. I heard Margaret putting the call through, then her voice changing to professional surprise. Ms. Aurora? This is Margaret Walsh at Sunset Vista. Yes, I'm calling about Unit 47A. There's been a communication issue with a couple who were expecting to rent the unit. Morrison, yes. I see. You want me to what? Are you sure? I understand. I'll take care of it immediately. What did they say? I could hear Mom asking in the background. Ms. Morrison, Margaret's voice was now completely different. I've spoken with the owner of Unit 47A, and she's agreed to allow your parents to stay there. That's generous of her. She's actually donating the use of the property to your parents indefinitely. No rent, no fees. She wants them to consider it their permanent home. What? Mom's voice carried clearly through the phone. Let me talk to my mom, I said. Jessica. Mom sounded completely bewildered. The owner of this condo wants to give it to us for free. Permanently. Who does something like that? Maybe someone who believes in helping people achieve their dreams. But we don't even know this person. Why would a stranger give us a $2.3 million condo? Maybe they're not as much of a stranger as you think. What do you mean? Mom, the owner of Unit 47A is Aurora Holdings, which is one of my companies. Silence. One of your companies? Dad's voice joined the conversation. Aurora Digital Solutions owns Aurora Holdings, which owns various real estate properties, including the villa you're standing in front of. Aurora Digital Solutions is your company? Aurora Digital Solutions is my company. I founded it 6 years ago. Current annual revenue is approximately $47 million. $47 million? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. Give or take a few million depending on how you account for international contracts. Jessica, Dad's voice was shaky. Are you telling us you bought our dream house? I'm telling you that when you mentioned San Diego, I researched the area and purchased a property that I thought you'd enjoy. But this place costs over $2 million. Actually, I paid $2.3 million for it. The location and amenities justified the premium. Where did you get $2.3 million? Mom asked. From my business. Aurora Digital Solutions specializes in marketing automation for large corporations. We develop software that helps companies manage customer relationships and optimize their sales processes. But you work from our kitchen table on a laptop. I work from home because it's convenient and because you're there. But my business operates globally. We have offices in 12 countries and over 800 employees. 800 employees? Dad repeated weakly. As of last month. We're expanding rapidly into Asian markets. Jessica, I don't understand. If you own a multi-million-dollar company, why have you been living at home like you can't afford your own place? Because 3 years ago when I moved home, it wasn't because I needed your financial support. It was because you needed mine. What do you mean? Dad, your business was failing. You were behind on the mortgage, behind on Mom's medical bills, and about to lose the house. I moved home to help you avoid bankruptcy. But we never asked for help. You never would have asked for help. You're too proud. So I helped quietly. How? By routing consulting contracts through your business, by making sure your mortgage payments went through, by covering Mom's medical expenses through my insurance company. Your insurance company? Aurora Holdings owns several subsidiary companies, including a small insurance company that I use for family financial management. Jessica, Mom's voice was very small. Have you been supporting us for 3 years? I've been making sure you were financially stable while you thought you were supporting me. But we thought you were struggling. I let you think I was struggling because it preserved your dignity while allowing me to help you. Why didn't you tell us the truth? Because the truth would have hurt your pride and changed our relationship in ways that might not have been good for any of us. And now you're in California living in your dream house, and I can finally stop pretending to be financially dependent on parents who were actually financially dependent on me. The silence stretched across 3 time zones. Jessica, Dad finally said, are we understanding this correctly? You've been running a multi-million-dollar company while living in our house and letting us think you were an unsuccessful adult child. That's an accurate summary. Why? Because I love you and I wanted you to be happy and I wanted you to feel good about yourselves as parents. By letting us feel superior to you? By letting you feel useful to me. Even though it was the other way around. The direction of support doesn't matter. What matters is that we took care of each other. Jessica, Mom said, tears evident in her voice, we've been treating you like a failure for 3 years. You've been treating me like someone you loved who needed guidance. That's not the same thing. But we've been giving you advice about career development and financial responsibility. And I've been listening because I love you and because your advice came from a place of caring, even when it wasn't relevant to my actual situation. This is humbling, Dad said quietly. It doesn't have to be humbling. It can just be clarifying. What do you mean? I mean, now we can have a relationship based on who we actually are instead of who we thought we were. Who are we actually? We're a family of 3 successful adults who love each other and want each other to be happy. And the house? Mom asked. Is yours. Permanently. Consider it a housewarming gift from your daughter who turned out to be more financially stable than you expected. 6 months later, I visited my parents in their San Diego villa. They'd settled into retirement community life with enthusiasm, making friends, joining activities, and generally living the dream they'd imagined for years. Jessica, Dad said as we sat on their oceanfront terrace watching the sunset, I have something to confess. What's that? I've been bragging about you to everyone in the community. You don't need to brag about me. I know I don't need to. For 3 years, I missed opportunities to be proud of my daughter because I didn't understand what she was actually accomplishing. You were proud of me for different reasons. I was proud of your kindness and your patience with your aging parents. But I should have also been proud of your incredible business achievements. Both kinds of pride are valid. Jessica, Mom added, we've been talking about your living situation. What about it? You're still in that big house all by yourself. We feel guilty about leaving you there alone. Don't feel guilty. I'm actually planning to downsize. To what? I bought a penthouse downtown. Better for business meetings, closer to the airport for travel. How big? Dad asked. 4,000 square feet. 3 bedrooms, home office, roof deck with city views. That sounds lovely. You're both welcome anytime. I set up the guest suite specifically for your visits. We'd like that. And Jessica, Mom said, we want you to know that we understand now. Understand what? Why you lived the way you did. Why you helped us without telling us. Why you let us think we were taking care of you when you were actually taking care of us. Why did I do that? Because you're a better person than we probably deserved, and because love doesn't always look like what we expect it to look like. The greatest victory hadn't been surprising my parents with their dream house. It had been teaching them that success comes in many forms, that love sometimes means accepting help gracefully, and that family relationships work better when they're based on mutual respect rather than assumed dependency. But more than that, we'd learned that sometimes the best surprise isn't showing people how wrong they were about your limitations. Sometimes it's showing them how much you love them despite their misconceptions, and giving them the gift of understanding who you really are when they're ready to see clearly. The California sunset painted the ocean in shades of gold and pink as we sat together on the terrace of their dream home, a home they'd achieved not through their own financial planning, but through the quiet love of a daughter who'd preferred to remain invisible rather than damage their pride. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving people wrong about your failures. Sometimes it's proving them right about your love.